Yo, stay wavy TV, ride the vibe with me, splash through your screen, drip clean like the sea, high tide energy, never on mute.
2025 is coming to an end, and I'm going to give you guys 5 fights that we got to see in boxing for 2026. The last fight that's going to happen this year is the Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua fight. We already know Anthony Joshua is going to put Jake Paul to sleep, you know what I'm saying? And I'm looking forward to seeing that tomorrow, right? But let's get back to the real fight, because I don't even consider that a real fight. I consider that fight like even though it is a professional fight, in my mind, it's an exhibition, because Jake Paul don't have no chance of beating Anthony Joshua. So, the number one fight that I would like to see in 2026 is Devin Haney versus Shakur Stevenson. Now, these guys got a lot of history together, right? Obviously, they both were at 135. Devin Haney was at 135 first. Devin Haney undisputed 135. And after he beat Vasily Lomachenko, Shakur Stevenson walked into the ring and basically called Devin Haney out for a fight. So around that time, Shakur Stevenson was doing a lot of clout chasing, mainly because Gervonta Davis and Devin Haney, they both, and they still to this day, have a bigger name than Shakur Stevenson, right? They got bigger fan bases. They sell more pay-per-views, right? They're just bigger names in the sport of boxing. They've just, I'm not going to say that they're more accomplished than him. They're just more popular. They've been promoted better. They've had better showcasings than Shakur Stevenson, right? So Devin Haney sent Shakur Stevenson an offer. I believe it was 15%, 25%, something like that. And it was for all of the belts at 135. Devin Haney was already planning on moving up to 140 anyway. So Shakur Stevenson was going to be his last fight at 135. Shakur Stevenson turned down that offer because in his mind, he felt like it was disrespectful that he was only offered 15 or 25%. Now, why would Shakur Stevenson think that's disrespectful? Because at the time, Shakur Stevenson had never been on pay-per-view before. All of his fights were for free on ESPN while he was with Top Rank. He had no pay-per-views, just like Teofimo Lopez. You had no pay-per-views. Devin Haney, that fight with Lomachenko was on pay-per-view, right? So I don't think the 15% was disrespectful at all. At the end of the day, you're getting a chance to get all of the belts, and after that, you still would get a big payday. You still would get paid a lot. Probably the biggest payday of his career at the time, right? So now, fast forward, right? Shakur Stevenson is fighting Teofimo Lopez in January next year. January 31st, he will be fighting for that 140 belt that Teo has. And if Shakur successfully gets past Teofimo Lopez, he wants to fight Conor Benn at 147. Now, a couple of months ago, Shakur did an interview, I believe it was with Cigar Talk. And Cigar Talk asked Shakur Stevenson if he will fight Devin Haney at 147. And he said, hell no. So he just did a brand new interview with Cigar Talk, literally 2 weeks ago. And Cigar Talk asked him the same question. And this time he said, you know what? I will fight Devin Haney, but I need a rehydration clause. That tells me everything I need to know about Shakur Stevenson. Shakur Stevenson doesn't want no smoke with Devin Haney at 147, right? You keep hearing Shakur saying in interviews he's a small guy. He says 147 will be the highest weight class he goes to. If you got to put Devin Haney on a rehydration clause, my nigga, you scared, bruh. And if you scared, go to church, okay? If you don't want that smoke, just come out and say you don't want that smoke. Stop acting like you want to fight Devin Haney, and then every chance where you really have the opportunity to make that happen, you duck from the smoke. But I would love to see Devin Haney versus Shakur Stevenson at 147 with no rehydration. If there's a rehydration clause, I don't think Devin Haney should take the fight, and I don't think he will take the fight. Because you can't, as long as he makes 147, that's all that matters. If he wants to come into the ring at 175, 160, 180, who gives a fuck? He made the weight. You know what I'm saying? Whenever you hear guys talk about weight, that means they scared. Unless a fighter misses weight, you shouldn't have a problem with how heavy they come into the ring. So the second fight that I want to see for 2026 is Gervonta Tank Davis versus Lamont Roach 2, right? We all know what happened in the first fight. Lamont, the Reaper Roach, made Gervonta Tank Davis take a knee It should have been considered a knockdown, but because Gervonta Davis is like the second or third face of boxing, they let it slide, right? He ran to the corner, wiped his eyes, said he had some Diddy oil stuck in his eyes and his eyes were burning, right? We really know he took a knee because he was about to get his ass dropped. Let's just be honest, bro. Lamar Roach was putting hands and feet on Gervonta Tank Davis. Now, Lamar Roach, he's coming off of a draw against Isaac Pitbull Cruz. A lot of people think he lost that fight. A lot of people think he was robbed in that fight. I don't understand how anybody can fix their mouth to say that Lamar Roach Jr. was robbed. First of all, he got dropped. That's number one. Second of all, he was fighting Pitbull's fight for the first 6 to 7 rounds of the fight, right? He was trying to prove to the world that he could knock out Isaac Pitbull Cruz, and he wasn't even able to drop Isaac Pitbull Cruz one time the entire fight. He really didn't even hurt Isaac Pitbull Cruz the entire fight. Lamar Roach came into that fight basically making the same mistake that Devin Haney made against Ryan Garcia. The only difference is Isaac Pitbull Cruz wasn't on Ostarine. Okay? Listen, do I think Lamar Roach won the fight? I think he won the fight by like 2 or 3 rounds, but at the end of the day, you guys got to understand boxing, bro. When you're fighting the champion, right, and you're fighting the champion's fight instead of your fight for a majority of the fight, the judges aren't going to go in your favor. It's just not going to happen, okay? You were in his playground, right? You're fighting the champ. You got dropped, right? You were trying to knock him out for the first 6 rounds. You were unable to do that. I think the fight, I'm not mad at the fight being a draw. If Isaac Pitbull Cruz would have won by 2 rounds or 3 rounds, the only problem I had was the first judge that had Pitbull Cruz winning by like 6 or 7 rounds. That was crazy. But other than that, bro, Lamar Roach, he caused himself to get a draw for the second time straight. That's his fault, right? He wasn't listening to his father. He was paying attention to the crowd too much, reacting every time Pitbull landed on him. The crowd was, getting hyped because it was an Isaac Pitbull Cruz heavy fan base in that arena. And Lamar Roach Jr., he let his ego get in the way of him winning that fight. So Gervonta Davis was supposed to fight Jake Paul, but he had another Chris Brown episode, so he ended up getting that fight canceled. And Gervonta Tank Davis was supposed to retire after this year, but he's pretty much made it clear on Twitter that he's not going to retire yet, right? He said he wants to rematch Isaac Pitbull Cruz. I think he should rematch Lamar Roach Jr. because you can't retire with that draw on your record, bro. He has to show the people that he's better than Lamar Roach Jr. And the only way that you're going to do that is if you beat him in a decisive fashion. And I'm going to be honest, I think if Gervonta Davis rematches Lamar Roach, I got Tank winning that fight by KO. That version of Tank that fought Lamar Roach, I think that was a Gervonta Davis that had 1 foot out of the sport of boxing and 1 foot in the sport of boxing. Now that he got that draw and he's seen how the fans turned on him and he saw how Roach looked against Isaac Pitbull Cruz, I think that Gervonta Davis would go into this rematch on Demon Time. I think we would get that same version of Tank that fought Frank Martin, you know what I'm saying? The angry, aggressive Tank. Because remember, Tank and Lamar Roach, they was homeboys before they fought each other. He was kind of looking at it like, you know what? I'd rather bring my homeboy up to my weight class, give him a payday, instead of fighting Shakur or Devin because I don't like them niggas. I actually like Lamar Roach, you feel me? That's why he was so respectful leading up to the fight with Lamar Roach. But what he didn't realize is Lamar Roach wanted to take his spot as the face of boxing. So Lamar Roach came in there like, man, this nigga's sleeping on me. And he did what he did, right? So let's move on. The third fight that we need to see in 2026 is Bam Bam Rodriguez versus Nayu Inoue, right? Now, Nayu Inoue is one of the most exciting fighters in the sport of boxing, bro, right? Even when this guy gets dropped, he always comes back and ends up knocking out the dude that dropped him, bro. Like, Inoue is a dog, right? And Bam Bam Rodriguez, this dude is probably the best all-around skilled boxer in boxing. The reason why a lot of people don't really talk about Bam Bam if you're not a hardcore boxing fan is because he fights in a lower weight class, right? So I would love to see Bam and Anyway, right, meet up at the same weight class. I don't care what weight class it is. I think Bam is one weight class lower than Anyway. Somebody let me know in the comment section. But these guys got to fight each other, man. Because Bam is so good that he just dominates anybody he steps in the ring with, bro. Like, he just makes boxing look so easy, bro. He has great defense, great jab, great footwork, right? Anyway is a guy that just comes forward and, you know, he tries to knock your head off his shoulders. So you would have a situation where you got a knockout artist like Nayu Anyway versus an all-around skilled boxer like Bam Bam Rodriguez. And I would love to see how that fight would look. Like, it's hard for me to even make a prediction on who would win that fight. I probably would lean towards Anyway, just because I think if Anyway catches Bam, he's going to go to sleep. He's going to get dropped, right? But it could go either way. Like, Bam drops people too. Like, Bam knocks people out too. So, like, this is a 50-50 fight. And I think this is a fight that can really elevate both of these boxers to star status, to where even the casual boxing fans know who these guys are. You know what I'm saying? So that's the third fight that I would like to see in 2026. Now, the fourth fight that we got to see in 2026 is David the Mexican Monster Benavidez versus Jay Opetaia, okay? David Benavidez is known for being a bully in the ring, right? Like, what he did to Anthony Yarde was extremely disrespectful. He was punching this dude, like, just putting hands and feet on Anthony Yarde, bro. Like, even after, you know, he got dropped and the ref was telling him to back up, he just kept throwing punches. Like, David Benavidez, he beats the shit out of people, okay? But you're not going to do that to Jay Opetaia, bro. Jay Opetaia is a bully. Bro, Jay Opetaia is the fucking boogeyman at cruiserweight, bro. Like, it's funny because I seen a lot of David Benavidez fans, like, they were laughing at Jay Opetaia because in his most recent fight, like 2 weeks ago, Jay Opetaia got dropped, right? But what they don't talk about is the brutal knockout that Jay Opetaia delivered to his opponent after he got dropped. That was a brutal fucking knockout, bro. Jay Opetaia is punching. He's punching, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, Jay Opetaia is a fucking beast, bro. Like, the motherfucker looks like the Terminator, bro. Like you just look at dude and you could just see he's a violent dude. Same thing with David Benavidez, right? So David Benavidez is about to make his debut at cruiserweight next year against Zurdo Ramirez, right? I'm expecting David Benavidez to beat Zurdo Ramirez, probably by KO. I don't look at Zurdo Ramirez as, he's a good fighter, right? I think he only has one loss to Bivol. He's a little bit older, but I think David Benavidez is just, I think he just punches. First of all, David Benavidez, he throws too many combinations and he punches too fast for Zurdo to stand a chance. I think David Benavidez is probably going to stop Zurdo Ramirez, right? But David Benavidez versus Jay Opetaia, that's a fight they got to do in Saudi, bro. Have that fight in Saudi Arabia, Ryder season. I'm telling y'all, bro. Like, what we thought the Arthur Beterbiev and Bivol fight was going to be, that's what we would get if David Benavidez and Jay Opetaia fought each other, because both of these guys are young, right? Unfortunately, Arthur Beterbiev, by the time he finally fought Bivol, he was already 40 years old. Both of these guys are young. David Benavidez is in his 20s. Jay Opetaia, I think he's in his late 20s. Let me look it up real quick. How old is Jay Opetaia? Yeah, Jay Opetaia is 30. David Benavidez is like 27, 28. Both of these dudes is young, bro. And like I said, man, like, that fight, somebody is guaranteed to get knocked out. I would definitely have to lean towards Jay Opetaia knocking out David Benavidez. Guys, Jay Opetaia has pretty much won all of his fights by KO. I think he only has like maybe 3 or 4 fights. Okay, so he has 29 fights, 23 he's won by KO. Okay, like, he's going in there knocking dudes out, bruh. And because he's already been at cruiserweight dominating that weight class, I would have to lean towards my boy Jay Opetaia probably stopping David Benavidez, right? So that's the 4th fight I would like to see. And finally, the last and final fight that we got to see in 2026 is Saul Canelo Alvarez versus Hamza Shiraz, right? Canelo Alvarez, bro, let's be honest, guys. Canelo Alvarez, 2026 might be the last year that we see Canelo in the sport of boxing, right? Terrence Crawford just retired at age 38. Canelo is, I think, 34, 35, but Canelo has a lot more miles and wear and tear on his body because he has a lot more fights. He has like over 70 professional fights, right? Terrence only had like 42 fights. So Canelo's not going to be around much longer, right? But Canelo is coming off of the third loss in his career. He lost to Floyd, he lost to Bivol, and he lost to Terrence Crawford, right? Some people think he lost to Laura as well, right? And Triple G. So he really should have 5 losses. But according to BoxRec, he has 3 losses, right? So what better way for Canelo to redeem himself and make a statement than going in there with a young guy like Hamza Shiraz, who is 6'4", 6'3", 6'4", tall motherfucker, right? And you guys share a common opponent, right? You guys both fought Edgar Bologna, right? Canelo dropped Edgar Bologna. Hamza KO'd Edgar Bologna. And I think that's a very dangerous fight for Canelo Alvarez. But Canelo Alvarez has one of the greatest chins in the history of boxing. I call Canelo the man of steel because his fucking chin is made of steel, right? Like Canelo's never been dropped in his career, right? So that's a fight where it's like you really don't know who's gonna win because Terrence Crawford moved up 2 weight classes and beat Canelo. And I think because of that, I think that took away like that whole aura of Canelo being this intimidated guy that Charlo was scared of. I think that's gone now, right? Obviously his fans would disagree with what I'm saying, but you know, if we're being honest, bro, like a dude moved up 2 weight classes and beat you with ease, right? Almost dropped you in the last round. So can Canelo really get in there with a Hamza Shiraz and beat a Hamza Shiraz? If he's able to beat Hamza Shiraz, then Canelo's back at the top of 168. Then we could probably get a Canelo-Lester Martinez fight, you know, or a Canelo and Billy fight, right? But I think what's going to happen, guys, I think Canelo's going to end up fighting Chris Eubank Jr. next year. I think that's going to be his first comeback fight. But I want to see Hamza Shiraz versus Canelo, bro. I just think that that's an extremely dangerous fight for Canelo. And listen, if he could somehow get past Hamza, right? Because Carlos Adames beat Hamza Shiraz, but that was at 160. It wasn't at 168. So if Canelo can beat Hamza Shiraz, maybe that'll give Canelo the confidence to finally fight David Benavidez. Maybe we could see Canelo move back up to 175 and fight David Benavidez for his last fight. You know, cash out. He would get the biggest payday of his career. He would give the fans what they wanted to see all of these years. And, you know, he could see, okay, I got in here with a guy that's pretty much the same height as David Benavidez, Hamza Shiraz. You know, maybe he'll do it. But that's the fights I want to see in 2026, man. Let me know the fights that you guys want to see in 2026. Let me know in the comments. Thank you guys for watching. It's your boy Wavy. I'm out.
Yeah, that's up, let it ring, that's the vibe, that's the thing. Wave after wave, we gon' rock, keep it locked, stay in sync. Stay Wavy TV, you know the name. Ring that bell, let it sing. We out of here, but you know we coming back. Catch me on the next wave.